If you had cardiac arrest at 24 years old and died, who would you come back as? What's up, Active Lifers? Welcome back to the Active Life Podcast. I'm joined today in studio by Dominic Fusco, and that is his story. He was 24 years old. He had cardiac arrest and died on the track, only to come back a better version of himself. And I can't wait for you to hear what he has to say about who he's become. Remember, when you find this podcast valuable, a few things I want you to do. Head to wherever you're listening and give us that 5-star rating. If we deserve it, okay? If we deserve it, give us a 5-star rating. Share it with a friend. And of course, go follow Dom on his social media channels and let him know how much you appreciate him sharing his story with you here on the Active Life Podcast today. Let's get to the show. When Jesse talked about going to New York City for Good Morning America to talk about living with a SEAL, and that he flew home on a private jet to go to his son's swim meet so his son would know he was there. And then he flew back home, or flew back to New York to do Good Day the next day. I was like, that's it. That's what money's for.
Yeah. What I love about Jesse too, funny, I was on a call with, I used to be involved in ProMix, it's like supplement company that Devin LeVake and a bunch of other, a couple other guys are in. So the main reason I was a part of that was because of these. They had these speakers on every month, and Jesse was the speaker one month, and he was like, guys, he was answering questions, he was being super engaged, and he was like, guys, I love this, I could answer questions all day, but I gotta go to my kid's swim meet. And so I actually messaged him after the event or after the talk, and I was like, hey man, thanks so much for today. Hope your kid crushes his swim meet. And he reached back out later that night. He goes, thanks, man. I appreciate it. By the way, he got second in the backstroke or something like that. Just a really cool, genuine dude. And it's definitely somebody that I look up to as kind of on my Mount Rushmore of people who I not idolize, but guys who I aspire to be because of the impact they actually are having on people.
Somebody who you want to influence you.
Exactly.
That's one of the things I tell people all the time is you got to be careful who you allow to influence you. Pick them on purpose. And Jesse, for me, was a formative mentor who influenced me in a way that I'm forever grateful for. And the only regret that I have from that situation is that I didn't have the social wherewithal to keep him close in my life. I'll remedy that. But that's something that I, in the past, could have done a better job of.
Okay.
Dom Fusco, welcome to the Active Life Podcast.
Dude, thank you for being here, man. This is epic. We got round 2 of 2.
For people who don't know, we are just basically flowing from me being a guest on Dom's show, the Pure Ambition podcast, and now Dom is a guest on the Active Life podcast.
Why not? Why not both? I love the collabing with other podcasters.
So do I. So we can talk about Jesse Itzler and mentoring all day. I told 2 people that I was interviewing you today, both today. I told my wife and I told our media guy, Sean Cleary, that I'd be interviewing you today. And both of them what does he have to bring to the table? He's a 24-year-old content creator. What do you interview? You usually interview people who you're really interested in learning how to be more like. And so first of all, I do want to be more like you in some ways. I do want to learn from you how to be so charismatic and consistent in your content. I watched you at this recent event that you filmed yourself doing in New York City. Mm-hmm. First thing is I'm like, how did I not know about that event? I should have been there. So Dom knows something I don't. I need to learn that. Second, there are scenes in the footage where Dom is doing things with both of his hands, which means somebody else was holding the iPhone. Who was that? What'd you say to them? Hold the iPhone while I throw this, what do you call it? The cornhole bag? Or just all these little things that I need to improve and will improve at. You do great. We can talk about that a little bit, perhaps. The thing I really wanted to ask you about is I'm most interested in your resiliency. You, 24 years old, went out to run a mile, 5:15?
5:15.
5:15. Not bad.
Not bad. Not great. Not bad. Definitely room for improvement there for sure.
5:15 mile into a completely unexpected, no way to know it was coming, heart attack, die on the track, effectively, get rescued by a friend and a firefighter, wake up in the hospital 2 days later, if I remember correctly, needing to figure out what just happened. What did I miss?
damn, you tell my story pretty well.
Thanks. Oh, so you can go home now?
Yeah, that's it. All right, we'll wrap up. Yeah, so I was on the track that day, and I had never tested my mile, but I'm a huge runner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I train for a couple marathons and ultra marathons, and I do track workouts like that all the time. So I was just, I'm just going to go test my mile. And Sean, I don't remember a single thing. I have video footage of me starting the mile, and I have video footage of me throughout the mile, and then like running towards the finish line or the last lap on the last 100.
You remember any of the mile at all?
Nothing. I don't remember anything. Like briefly, like little bit vividly, I can kind of remember my friend calling out like 2:30 at the 800 meter mark. So like we were me and friend on pacing.
5-minute pace.
5-minute pace. And then after that, nothing. So it was you were close. It was cardiac arrest, not a heart attack. So a cardiac arrest is when your heart like randomly, or is when your heart goes into like an arrhythmia, which is an irregular heartbeat, which it just shuts off. And
that's like what an AED would save you from.
Exactly. So I'll get into that also. So a heart attack is when there's lots of like plaque buildup in your arteries. So a lot of people who have heart attacks, they have a very unhealthy diet, or they smoke, and they have all this plaque buildup from all the, bad food and lack of exercise and things that they're putting in their body. But you can like people feel like, I think I'm having a heart attack, like it's, and some people it never gets too bad. They have like little mini heart attacks, or like they survive heart attacks. Cardiac arrest happened to LeBron James's son very recently. Right. It's happened weirdly enough. It happened to DeMar Hamlin from the Buffalo Bills. Yep. Like he went into cardiac arrest. It happened to a high school basketball player.
Happened to a kid died playing hockey here in Long Beach.
Every week.
Oh, no, wait, that's not true. He hit by a car. But a kid died playing Little League baseball.
Okay. There was, again, like the same week that I had my cardiac arrest, LeBron James' son had cardiac arrest and survived. A high school basketball player in Alabama, one of the top recruits in the nation, cardiac arrest and died. A cheerleader who was at a Texas A&M cheer camp, cardiac arrest and died. All within like a week. And I'm like, this is just crazy. And even still now I'm getting people sending me these articles like all the time, like saying of people who unfortunately didn't survive this. And, it makes me just insanely grateful for the fact that I did. I still haven't been diagnosed with what happened that day. Mm-hmm. I've gone for a couple follow-ups, and I think about it a lot too, because like, man, like I'm very active. I sleep well. I eat well. Like my health is at like the pinnacle of the forefront of everything else that I do in life. So I was like, why? Like, why did this happen to me? When I woke up in the hospital, it was not quite 2 days, like 20, like a little over 24 hours in the hospital. I was on the ventilator. So when I went down.
Intubated or no?
What's that?
Were you intubated down your throat?
Yeah. So I got some gnarly pictures.
I bet.
It chokes me up when I even like try to look at them. But so I went down on the track apparently, and it wasn't like what happened to LeBron James' kid. What happened to Bronny was like he was like jogging down the court and just like collapsed, and that's what typically happens with cardiac arrest.
Hank Gather's the first guy that happened.
Hank Gather's, exactly. So I've done a lot of research on this kind of stuff. But yes, Hank Gather's just running back and boom, collapsed dead. Mm-hmm. I had finished the mile, and then it was a couple minutes after, like I walked over to the end of the track, and my friends were just like, oh, okay, yeah, he's just catching his breath. But after a couple minutes, like I still like looked like I was struggling. So they went over there, and I wasn't being real responsive. And then the firefighter came over, who just, by the grace of God, happened to be there on the track that day. And then I went down, and they were like, oh, like, shit, like what happened? Like, what's going on? But then I bounced back up. Like they called my buddy Harry called the ambulance to come. And then I like stood back up, like out of nowhere. And they're like, whoa, like what just happened? Yeah. And then apparently, like, again, I don't remember any of this, but apparently I was coherent. I was talking. I was saying like, no, Harry, like I'm good. I don't need the I don't need an ambulance. Like I'm chilling. Right after, like I hadn't said anything since I finished the mile.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, thank God he didn't listen to me and say, okay, no ambulance, whatever. Because a couple moments later, rather, I went down again. And this time I went purple. I seizured out, completely lost my pulse. My friend said that he like grabbed my arm and it was cold. And at that point, you have like less than 3 minutes to like revive, like to try to get a pulse back. Otherwise, like one thing is like brain damage. I'm so blessed that I don't have any brain damage. Like that was no neurological damage, nothing. Like amazing. They said I was probably out for about 1.5 to 2 minutes. So like getting very close. And
Did the ambulance get there to throw the AED on, or was the firefighter?
So the firefighter was able to get CPR. So he was able to get a pulse back.
Wow.
Which is just
no broken ribs.
No broken ribs.
Wow.
Thank God, this barrel chest that I had here beforehand.
So
all the bench press and push ups that we had to do playing football finally coming off, paying off. But
it's probably more the hits you took that made the bones.
Right,
nice
exactly. Which is another interesting rabbit hole where I talked to a lady recently. She thinks that all of the acute hits that I've had in like the 12, 13 years of playing football could have damaged all the neurotransmitters in my brain that may have caused this to happen.
I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
That sounds, to me, on its face, it sounds unlikely just because of how many people play football and don't have this happen to them.
Exactly.
How many people, I have no reason to believe this at all. So I want to preface with this.
Yeah.
But I know you've got it in your DMs, not because you told me, but because I live on the internet as well.
Yeah.
How many people have asked you if you got vaccinated and they think it's because of that?
Let's just say if I had $1 for every email, text, or message that I got, I could buy a nice podcast studio of my own out here on Long Island. Let's just say that. And I'll be straight up honest with you. Like I did get vaccinated, and I don't respond to every DM or every comment asking me if I was vaccinated.
Right.
But
you
I did
post it in your bio.
Right. Yeah. hashtag vax. But I did get the vaccine. I got the J&J vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the only reason I did was because I was a junior in college and I needed to go back to play football in my final year.
Look, I talked to I was on the Savan podcast. I don't know if you know Savan.
Love Savan.
And he asked me, he's like, "Did you get vaccinated?" And I told him I did. I was like, "Look, I felt social pressure to do it, and I wanted to do what I felt like was my responsibility. And I had some travel coming up to Canada, and I couldn't get in without the vaccine anyway. So I was like, you know what? I've put worse things than this into my body.
Yeah.
And I am not here. I will say this into the camera. I am not here saying the vaccine caused Dom's cardiac arrest. I have no reason to believe that. I have no scientific background to believe that. No, nothing. I just know people were going to ask.
Yes.
So this happens to you. You wake up in the hospital. How long till you were out of the hospital?
I was in the hospital for a week. So this happened on Saturday, August 5th, which is a month after I moved down to Austin.
Right,
too.
good timing. I'm sure your mom was thrilled.
Yeah, amazing, right? Like, so that's a whole another story too. And people are like, "Oh, that must have been so scary for you." I'm like, imagine being my mother, right? Her oldest.
Actually, it wasn't scary. I woke up in the hospital.
I was like, it's scary to me to look back on now, but I woke up and I had no idea where I was or what was going on, right? So not super scary, but I was in the hospital for a week. I had a ton of different tests done. I was constantly getting monitored, and I was getting EKGs and like all these tests that I can't even pronounce, and MRIs and all these like like every day was like a new procedure or something, but it was just a lot of waiting. Like anytime a doctor come in, like, please, like, can I get some sort of information here? Can I please get some sort of information here? And there wasn't much. They thought that it could have been something called long QT syndrome, which is where you have like I have a low resting heart rate anyway. My low resting heart rate is like 40. And so, you know, I'm a
trained. People need to understand there's a difference between a 40 heart rate when you're untrained and a 40 heart rate when you're trained.
Exactly. So all these doctors are telling me they want me to, I was like, the first thing I said, like when I woke up out of the trance when they took me off the ventilator was like, drugs are poison. Don't give me any. I was just telling them drugs are poison.
Well, so is the food they were going to give you. I love
so
that.
Yes, exactly. So, and I kept telling them, and like, granted, the people in the hospital were very nice. The nurses were very nice. People brought me food, but I was like, hey, respectfully, like, don't waste this and create it because bring me because I'm not going to eat it.
Bring it to a homeless shelter. Don't give it to a patient.
Exactly.
This is sustenance only so much that somebody can tolerate moving around throughout the day so that they can take the opportunity to do something else. But this is not food.
Right. I really think that because food is information that we put into our body. And I truly think that the reason why I was able to progress so quickly was because I was very, very intentional about the food that I was putting into my body. I was having, my mom was going and like to Central Market and she's getting me like going to a friend's house, cooking me like pasture raised eggs and like grass finished beef and avocado and bone broth and yogurt and fruit and all these things. So, I mean, that's a whole nother tangent, but anyway, I wake up on Sunday, like afternoon. That's when they took me off the ventilator. And I really don't remember anything that whole Sunday because I was on so many drugs that were keeping me alive. They had to transfer me to another hospital across town in Austin to like the cardiology department. So the whole week I'm getting these tests done and I'm not really getting any true answers. They say like you have a slightly enlarged heart, but that could just be athlete's heart, which is, like it just means like you're healthy, you're fit and you're healthy, right? But like even to now, I still don't have a definitive answer as to why this happened. There's no structural damage to my heart. So myocarditis is kind of the main like Hank Gathers, like myocarditis, like it's one of the main reasons why like athletes will have a cardiac arrest, and that's like inflammation within like the structure of the heart. That's what myocarditis is, and it causes you to have this cardiac arrest. For me, it wasn't that. It's something that was more in the electrical circuitry of the heart. So there's this thing called a channelopathy, which your heart has these ion channels that pump minerals, like, and electrolytes in and out of them. And when you have a channelopathy, it's basically a disease that develops in one of these little ion channels. So that is that's their suspicion right now as to what they think caused it. Going back to the vaccine thing, like, could the vaccine have caused me to develop a channelopathy, which may have caused cardiac arrest? Maybe. Like, I'll say this into the camera now too. I'm not saying that having a vaccine caused me to have a cardiac arrest, but I'm also not saying that it didn't have something to do with it. Will I ever know? Probably not. But I'm not going to spend all of my days researching, like trying to prove a point of like, did it happen or not? Like, I'm only looking forwards. I know that this happened for me. It didn't happen to me. The trajectory of my life is completely different. The way that I like structure my days is completely different. My why and my vision and my mission are so much stronger.
So that's the stuff I want to get into. Yeah. Because I was telling my wife this morning, I was like, the thing I'm most interested, I was like, what questions would you want to ask a mid-20-year-old who just had a heart attack after a long life of athletics and being healthy? And she's like, I don't know. So babe, I love you. Maybe we'll do a podcast together, but you're not, going to host one of your own for a while, probably. I have a theory, and I'm curious for you to confirm it or deny it as per your experience. I believe maturity is the result of trauma that becomes internalized and handled in a way that is productive for us. And so what I mean by that is I have my own traumas that I've been through. We talked about them on the show with you. Anyone who's listening to this knows a lot of them for me. None of them were physical in the sense that I was at risk of death. Right? None of them were so emotional that I found myself in a real depression. So it took me a while to develop the maturity that I think I have now. My philosophy is that, or my theory is, trauma like what you experienced was intense in terms of the timing that you had it, right? So cardiac arrest, almost die, in the hospital for a week, 25 years old. You have choices about how you're going to live coming out of that. You can be going down the rabbit hole of, how did this happen? Whose fault is this? Who am I going to blame? All of that. You could be going down the rabbit hole of, what do I need to do to stay safe? Being in a doctor's office every single week for the rest of your life. Test for this, test for this, test for this, test for this. All of the, you could do both of those, and you could propel your life forward and say, why did this happen for me? What's the gift in this? I'm curious if you feel a difference in the maturity that you live with it's almost like there was Dom before and Dom after.
You took the words out of my mouth. I literally tell people this was literally like my rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
And there was Dom pre-cardiac arrest and there was Dom post-cardiac arrest. Mm-hmm. And I think in life, we're constantly having to, chill, like this word, like we're having to kill off like that old version of ourselves to step into that new version of ourselves. And for me, I did not choose to kill old Dom, and yeah, I did not choose to kill old Dom and bring new Dom into the picture. But I think that when I woke, or not that I think, like when I woke up that whole week, like I never once like felt bad for myself. I never, sure, like it sucked. I was in a lot of pain. I was very confused. I was very emotional. I didn't know what happened. I didn't know when the next time, I didn't know when I was going to leave the hospital. I didn't know if I was going to have to get procedures done. I didn't know, like, I now have a defibrillator permanently on my side right here, which I'll show you after. I'll show you after the podcast. I didn't know, like, the doctors wanted me to get a pacemaker put in that was going to regulate my heartbeat at like 60 beats per minute. Right. I'm like, hell no. I'm not letting you do that.
Right.
So that was just interesting that they were like, oh, your resting heart rate is low. We're going to put a pacemaker in you. And I was like, no, we're not.
I earned that low heart rate.
Yes. I was like, exactly. I was like, we're not going to do that. But I never once thought like, oh man, like poor me. For some reason, maybe it's my faith. Maybe I'm very strong in my faith, and I haven't always been, but over the past year, it's been a huge part of my life. Mm-hmm. I just felt like there's a reason that this happened for me. There's a reason that it happened at that specific point in time. Literally just made the biggest life decision to move halfway across the country, like drove my car down to Austin. I didn't even have a place to live yet. I was pet sitting on this platform that you can stay at people's houses.
I just saw that.
Yeah, which is awesome, by the way. I was bouncing from house to house, pet sitting dogs, and then I finally was sleeping on in a friend's apartment until I found a place myself. But like, when I got out of the hospital, I was like, I don't have like a home to go to. I have like my friend's like apartment that I'm going and I'm staying at. So all that was to say, like, I just knew that God was using me for a reason, like, and that I have these like goals and dreams and ambitions and things that I want to accomplish in life. But at the same time, like, are they in alignment with what he wants for my life? The week before this happened, I signed up for the CIM marathon, which I have to transfer my bib actually, but signed up for a marathon, was on the phone with my friend the day before who like helps me out with my content. I was like, hey, like I want to do this, YouTube series. I want to document all this. I want to hire a videographer, editor, like all this stuff. It's going to be great. Apparently that wasn't what I was supposed to be doing, right? No. Because at the same time, I felt like I was beating my body to the ground, but I felt like that was the identity that I had to have in order for people. I was like, nobody's going to watch my content. Nobody's going to care about what I do if I'm not this like performance-oriented creator. I was like, who am I as a creator if I'm not like documenting my races or whatever? And it's something I adopted because I wasn't even like, when I started creating, it was just my podcast page. And then it developed, I'm just documenting doing college football stuff, because that was what I was doing at the time. But it was easier for me to like detach from just solely doing those things. Whereas like with running and like this creating, is because I developed a little bit of a following. I was like, nobody's going to care what I'm doing if I'm not creating like running content. So that was probably the most difficult part of all this, was like, okay, like creating content is like essentially my living, right? Like if I'm not doing that, I'm just laying in the hospital bed. Like, who am I? Right. Well, what is my story?
Not only creating content, but creating content people want to consume.
Right.
Engagement. And I'm curious about that, because if I tell my wife, oh yeah, he's a content creator, she's like, what the fuck does that mean? Like that sounds like the most TV show bullshit character.
It's the most Gen Z shit of all time.
Yeah. Like I told Chase when he sat in that chair, I'm like, if I tell people what you do, they're like, you're like I told him, I'm like, I don't want to describe you as, but the best way I know how to do it is like the guy who walks around Google and tells like you ever watch the show Silicon Valley?
I'm familiar. I haven't seen it.
So like the fake shaman who's like walking around with the beads and he's like,
yeah, I haven't seen it.
I'm like, I know that's not you.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it any other way. Like
did he have his like dangly necklace on?
Yeah. And I'm like, it's so how does a content creator make a living?
Yeah, so I'm actually the co-founder of a health and wellness tech startup called Upspace, community building platform centered around health, happiness, and love. And I got into that because of my content creation in the health and wellness space.
I see.
So two of my other co-founders, I went to high school with one of them, and then he connected me to like one of the other co-founders. And for me, I was a personal trainer and nutrition coach coming out of college. I was a business major, played football. I was sharing that with you. Dickinson College, out in PA. So, but I was a business major, and then I had these injuries that I was telling you about. Really inspired me to just dive deeper into like holistic health and wellness, and like, you know, mindset, visualization, nutrition, sleep, like, you know, resetting your circadian rhythm, all these things I had no idea about that I applied and became the best football player, like better than I could have ever been. And I was like, okay, if I can take that and apply it to my own health, like I want to apply that to like, and help other people. But then I started creating content and I was like, yo, I kind of like this more than I like writing training programs and like coaching other people. And I always saw like, this isn't scalable. That was always like my thing, was like, this isn't scalable. And I have a strong mission, and that's to inspire and empower 100 million people to become the happiest, healthiest, most fulfilled version of themselves. Like that's my why. That's my life mission.
How'd you choose that number?
I said 1 million one time, and then Alex Hormozy, I watched a video, and he was like, whatever your like goal is, 100x it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, damn.
Right, because it makes you start to think.
Yeah, it makes you start to think.
You can't do the same thing that you would have done to get to 1 million.
But also like my intentionality behind what I do is going to be amplified if it's at 100, if it's at 100 million versus if it was only at 1 million people. And do I have a metric on how I'm measuring that? No, but it's which I don't know, maybe I could do, but either way, that's where that number came from. Something that like scares me a little bit. And people are like, 100 million people, like, you're crazy. How are you going to do that? So that is like, that's how I got into like content creation in general. I never did this because like, oh, that looks cool. Like I want to be an influencer and so like do that.
What you're describing, if I'm understanding correctly, is you creating content and becoming the content is the best conduit for people to find your startup.
Yeah.
And you're basically just the front man for the band. And everyone else is playing the music.
Yeah.
And people buy the album.
Yeah.
Because you're on the cover.
So exactly. So we have a team of 6.
Okay.
You know, we started with 2, and then I came on as the third co-founder. Now we have 6 and one guy part-time. So we have this whole team now, and each one of us is able to lean into our own strengths. Granted, I've had to do a lot of crap that I wasn't good at but I've learned so much along the way because I was naive when I graduated college, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go start this, you know, online business after I just graduated, and like it's all going to be great. Where I didn't have the experience, I just had to learn things on the fly, which I'm so glad I did. But I struggled for months and months and months until I finally decided to go all in on becoming a co-founder of this company and just lean into doing more of what I loved to do, and that was creating content. And I went and I moved in. I lived with my mom after graduating so that I could. I was making no money, but my expenses were really low, so I was able to take a risk, and I was able to like, hey, I've had this podcast. I've been doing it since I was a junior. I still to this day have not made much money from it at all. But it's opened up so many doors and avenues, and it's
about the networking.
It's about the networking, exactly. And so about 2.5 years into creating content damn near every single day, I had a brand reach out to me and say, hey, it was Melon. It was a hat company. It was the first company I ever reached out to me. Like, hey, we love your content. We'd love to have you do a UGC video for us. I was like, what the heck is UGC? User-generated content, where they can take the content I make and use it for them. And I was like, wait, like, you want to pay me $350 to make some videos? Like, hell yeah. So I texted my buddy Matt Choi. I was like, yo, like this brand wants to pay me $350. Like, I didn't even know I could do this, or whatever. He goes, bro, like you got to negotiate. You need way more than that. I was like, what? So like I ended up getting like $500 for that. But that opened up the door to me of like, hey, something I'm doing here is working.
Yep.
Something I'm doing here is working. And I just felt so fulfilled. Like each day, all I could think about was like, what do I want to create today? What do I want to bring to the world? And while nobody was really watching, I was still posting. Like it took me 3 years to get to 3,000 followers. And then it's taken me 1 year to go from like 3,000 followers to 60,000 followers.
That's a pretty good
So
road.
it's just a compounding effect of just like getting in the reps and getting in the reps every day. So now, yes, I'm like the front facing marketing partnerships, just bringing people into the ecosystem while I let my other co-founders, they work on their coding or they're doing the tech and they're doing ops and they're doing vision. They're doing all this stuff. And I'm still a part of like some of that, not coding, thank God.
Right.
But I'm able to go out there and like create and do things like this and form relationships. And, you know, if it makes sense of like, hey, you know, we have this platform where you can build a community, share resources, programs, things like that, bring people together, like awesome. But I get to lean into my strengths and I still get to work with really cool brands. And that allows me to invest back into myself. All the money that I make, like I try to live very frivolously and very frugally in my 20s because I want to keep building this strong foundation, because the more that I invest into myself, the more that I grow and the more people that I'm able to impact. So that is what kind of like being a content creator looks like.
Well, that's a really good answer. That's a really good answer. We're out of time. I would love to get a really quick answer from you on what we just rewrote our mission statement, and it's to empower a life of freedom without compromise. So I'll say that again: empower a life of freedom without compromise. I'm curious what that means to you when you hear, especially the without compromise part.
Freedom without compromise, I love. And the first thing I think about is like kind of the question that I asked you is like, how do you define pure ambition and how does it apply to your daily life? I think freedom without compromise is an endless pursuit. It's a relentless pursuit of something. It could be a mission that you're trying to accomplish. It could be something that you're trying to build. It could be, you know, a feeling that you're trying to chase. But like for me, it's always like I'm trying to leave a legacy. And what a legacy means to me is not like I want my name on a bench or like a building named after me, because a mentor of mine told me your legacy is not what you do, it's what you give. So for me, like freedom without compromise is like I'm going to relentlessly chase the things that I am super passionate about in life and that I feel like God has put me on this earth to do. And I'm not going to let society or even friends or family or people that are close to me sway me from that. I set a word for myself in 2023 to be my word for the year, and that's unshakable. And I think unshakable applies to like, you know, freedom without compromises. I will not let any circumstance, not even dying, and throw me off of what I want to accomplish in life. And that's to inspire 100 million people to become the happiest, healthiest versions of themselves, and to create a brand, to create I want people to like watch my content and consume my content and have this feeling of like hope that they don't have to be stuck in their 9 to 5. That they don't have to be caught in the matrix. I'm a kid. I'm a first generation college student. I come from an Italian family from South Philadelphia, where I'm the first one in my family to go to college. One of the first ones on my mom's side of the family to go to college. You know, divorced parents, like, you know, I've gone through a lot, and I've earned everything that I've had. So I like to I don't want to pat on the back there. I share that to say, whatever your circumstances are, you are still capable of chasing something, but don't attach yourself so much to the outcome of a situation. Like attach yourself to the pursuit and follow that.
You are a wise, mature man, Dom Fusco. And it's a pleasure to have had you on the Active Life podcast. Where can people find more from you?
Dude, thank you so much. I'm so excited that we finally got to meet. Like I look up to you so much.
Thank you.
And there's so much that I want to learn from you as well. So I'm really excited for the start of this beautiful friendship. They can check me out. Instagram is probably the best way to connect with me. It's just my name at Dominic Fusco. From there, you check out my podcast, which is the Pure Ambition Podcast. Also on YouTube, it's just my name. LinkedIn, TikTok, just search my name. You can find me.
Awesome. Dom, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Active Life Podcast. Please remember, give us a hand, rate it, review it wherever you listen to shows. We are on a mission to humanize the healthcare industry by professionalizing the fitness industry to empower the individual to live a life unlimited by the way that their body looks, feels, or performs. If you are inspired by that mission and want to jump on the wagon, find us anywhere. Active Life Professional on Instagram, Active Life RX on Instagram. Come to me personally at Dr. Sean Pastuch. We want to welcome you onto the train. We want you to be a part of the mission. We want to offer you the opportunity to pursue this right alongside us. We're inspired by your effort, and we hope to help you in your journey. Turn pro.